Hello and welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sachs. I'm very happy and pleased to welcome you, Annette Taddeo, who is running as a Democrat for Dade County Clerk of the Courts and Comptroller. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so this isn't your first foray, step into politics.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and you for your service as a former senator as well. What inspired you and to make you want to run again?
Well, actually, public service. I love public service. And when I became the first Latina Democrat in Florida history to be elected to the Florida Senate, I went to Tallahassee and got reelected. But during that time, I really was extremely successful at getting things done. I was extremely successful at working across the aisle, building the respect and working for the people. And so, you know, when COVID happened, I was the one who really worked extremely hard to make sure that people got their unemployment insurance checks. As you remember, it collapsed. Many of the state representatives and senators, didn't want to be in the fire responding for something that collapses, because you sort of, it's the government and you're the government. Never mind who did it, who was the governor, or any of that. It's really just, for me, is about making sure people are getting the service they deserve. So on a daily basis, I was on radio, on TV, on Spanish radio, taking calls from people, and actually convinced the senator, the president of the Senate, to allow me to hire more people, because we were getting so many phone calls from people from all over the state and from Miami-Dade County outside of my district, just because we were the ones answering the phone. We were the ones making sure people got their checks. So that's just one example of the service that I love, just being there for people when they need us most. And COVID proved to us how important government is to people when they need it. And so for that reason, many people came to me. Mayor Daniela Levin Cava, who's supporting me, she came to me and she said, this is a really important position. We need someone that knows how to do the job, that can handle the big job that Harvey Rubin had for 30 years as our clerk. But in addition to that, with the addition of Comptroller, which is new, it really worried a lot of folks. But getting a call and the support of Daniela is not as surprising as getting calls from Republicans who called up and said, you should run for this. And that did surprise me. But I asked, why? Why are you calling me a Democrat, asking me to run for this? And they said, you proved that when you are elected, you put politics aside and you just work together to get things done. You don't play the games. You just want to protect Miami-Dade's home rule. You want to protect our resources. So that really it sort of pushed me over the edge. And then there was one last thing that happened to get in this race. And that's that I went to see a friend of mine, a former senator as well, Senator Abruzzo, who is the clerk and comptroller in Palm Beach. And I visited not just with him, but more importantly with his staff, the leaders of each of the departments, both in the clerk's and the comptroller's office, because they have a great reputation for using technology to provide better service, for answering the phone, for getting things done. And I really wanted to know what sort of things could we implement in Miami-Dade to make it a state-of-the-art, this century kind of clerk and comptroller office. And that's ultimately what brought me over the edge, just seeing all the things that can be done. And I look forward to implementing all those.
And it's wonderful to hear some of the background that you bring forward. And I'm sure you have that with influences in your lives, as a mentor, teacher, your father, for example. Tell me a little bit about, you have an incredible history. You're Latina, you're Jewish. you converted to Judaism, you said?
In my 20s, yes.
Before you met your husband?
Before I met my husband. We're still trying to convert my husband, is what we say. Dr. Goldstein, we're working on you. No. But truly, yes, I've had lots of influences in my life, but my father is the top of all that. I wear my father's Air Force ring. He was an American pilot? Yes, an American Air Force pilot. Back then it was called Army Air Corps. But the fact is he fought in World War II. He fought in Korea. Then he became, after being a fighter pilot, he became a helicopter instructor. And that is the reason he went to Colombia, South America, to teach Colombians how to fly helicopters. And so that's when he met my mom, and the rest is history. So she's Colombian, and your father is Italian-American from New Jersey. Absolutely. Of course. Where else are you going to be? Where else are you going to be? You're it's like a Soprano movie, you know? Where are you from? I'm from New Jersey. Yes. So married to a New Yorker, but also with the Colombian. I mean, a little bit of everything. That's so Miami, right? That's so Miami. Yeah, it's such a flavor. And so you moved to Miami when? Well, I moved to Miami during Hurricane Andrew. My parents lost their home because I was the first one to leave Colombia after the FARC, the terrorist group in Colombia, took over our farm in an area of Colombia that was really overtaken by the FARC, the terrorism group. And as you can imagine, my father is an American, a pilot, who was the private pilot for many of the presidents of Colombia. So it really, he was a target. But when they took over the farm, our ranch, he was taken. He actually, because of all of the wonderful training, he escaped. And that was wonderful. But it created a situation for me as the youngest daughter to be the first one that really needed to get out. Like one day I was shopping for uniforms for the next school year, and the next day I was on a plane to Alabama, where I graduated high school and college. And really that experience in Alabama was obviously without my parents, with friends of my parents living there. It really makes me a lot of who I am today, because, you know, those tough situations, I connect a lot, for example, with the Peter Pan Cubans, because they also came without their parents. They were sent. It really is it's an unusual upbringing as a teenager to have to go through that. And then in college, really very engaged, very involved, and those experiences in North Alabama, yes. University of. Yes, very, very much Alabama. Just like Columbia, just like Miami, right? No, not at all. But you know, those experiences of real racism that were very obvious made me want to make sure that I was, first of all, I always said, I'm going to go into business. I'm going to be very successful because I want to never have to worry about resources, about money. I want to be independent. And then I'm going to run for office. And I always said I would do that since college. And that was because I knew that we needed to have diversity of seats at the table, different voices. And I knew that I had something to offer. Again, that public service really came from my dad. And it's interesting because you have the influences of your dad, yes. The qualities that you bring to that. You bring your culture, which is very diverse. Yes. Yes, extremely diverse. And also, obviously, the business background. I mean, having been in business for 30 years. And language speak, yes, which I still own. I no longer run it. I'm just the owner. But I do have a team that continues to run the business and do very well. And I'm very, very proud of that, because that was my goal, to have a business and to succeed in order to be able to do what I love, which is serving the public. Absolutely. And you are a former Florida senator. You won during a special election. Yes. You made history. Yes. The first Latina, Jewish, Democrat, elected to the Florida State Senate. Yes. Yes, and I replaced Frank Artiles.
Right.
So in itself, that was also very historic and interesting. And really, for me, it was really important to represent everyone in that district. We tend to draw maps in Tallahassee, or they tend to draw maps in Tallahassee in a way that helps one particular party, and then there's a lot of areas of within each district that is sort of like they never see their senator, they never see their representative, and I believe that everyone should be represented, whether they voted for you or not. And that's something that I'm very proud that I always did.
And as your time as a senator and moving forth now running for office, what do you bring from that experience as a senator to doing what you want to accomplish as clerk of the court and comptroller?
Well, really is the experience of being able to work across the aisle, thinking always of what is it that Miami-Dade needs for us to continue moving forward. One of the problems with this position and concerns is if you bring partisanship into it. And unfortunately, it is a partisan position, but it should be run as nonpartisan.
Please take your
I am
water.
getting
You just got
over a
all
cold.
choked up.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
So
You good?
yes.
Just got all choked up. You want me to continue? I'll continue.
So one of the things that I'm very concerned about is when this position should really be run in a nonpartisan way, and that is something that my friend Harvey Rubin always did. He was beloved by everyone. He really cared for his employees, made sure that people were happy to work there, and that everyone was having, that the service was being provided. But also the county commission, working with all the county commissioners and the mayor to move the agenda forward. That doesn't mean that you agree on everything, but it's really important that we understand how the power of this position can really affect projects, things to move forward, if you start playing politics with it. For example, this position as comptroller, which again is something completely new.
Why don't you tell our audience exactly what the responsibilities are in this dual role?
Yes. Well, listen, the clerk's office is something essential to everyday life for everyone, and people don't even realize it in many instances. Obviously, it means running our courts, our entire justice system, but there are so many things that we can do, again, with technology, to really implement so we can provide a better service at the clerk's office. One example, for example, having an attorney hotline so that somebody answers the phone, which is a big complaint. Yes,
if you want me, press 1.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's not just about, the needs of attorneys are very different from the needs of the regular public who are calling. Maybe they got a traffic ticket. Maybe they, they got something about jury duty. I mean, different things. So we need to make sure that we separate that, and that attorneys who have urgent needs, usually if they're calling, that those are being handled, and different kind of training for those phone calls. In addition to that, I think that we, there's so many things that we can do to help people. One of the things that this place does, one of the many things, is, for example, you get married, you go to the clerk's office. You get divorced, you go to the clerk's office. Your title is held at the clerk's office. All of those records, which there is an issue going on right now with title fraud, and I know that across the state things have been implemented, but people need to know about it. We need to do a much better job of making sure that everyone is registered to know if somebody somebody's getting any kind of information or wants to do anything with your title of your home. That is, they especially take advantage of elderly folks.
What's that scheme? Tell me a little bit what the scheme happens.
Unfortunately, there are many times, and by law, the clerk's office just has to do, when somebody says, I need to do this change to the title or do this or that, it really, you're just supposed to do it. But if you are signed up for an alert on your home, then you will be notified either via text or via email about it. So that's wonderful. That's been implemented, but many people don't know about it, and that's what I mean. And even if you go to the website right now and try to do it, it's really difficult. You have to go through 4 different places to try to
Press
find.
Press one. You might get a live person.
Yes, and so, and I've been actually sharing via text the people that asked me for the link, because again, it's impossible to find, and it shouldn't be that way. So those are simple things, but one other thing that really I think would be really helpful is when you are a battered person or somebody who's been abused, let's say by a spouse or a boyfriend, this is the place where you go, the clerk's office, to try to get a restraining order or any kind of protection. Well, there is a way for us to give them a digital ID that tells that to the police officer or to anyone, because obviously if you're running away or you're somewhere, you're not going to carry with you always all these papers. We need to make sure that it's a lot easier, and that mostly women in the case of this feel protected. So that's just one example of the many things that I want to implement at the office.
What do you see right now is ineffective?
Look, the technology has not been updated, and this is not
we're not bashing.
No,
we're just talking what you're seeing, your observation.
Look, my opponent has done the best in the last year that he's been there since he was appointed by DeSantis, the best he can, and I believe that he means well. And so this is not about that. This is really about having somebody with a business background who understands what needs to happen about training, cross-training, getting employees to really deliver the services, and also with the technology updates that we need in order to provide the services, which I go back to Palm Beach and why I visited with them as to what technology did they use, how did they do it, and even some other ones in other places that have implemented the digital that I just spoke about, the digital ID. So there's a lot of things at the clerk's office that we can do. But on the Comptroller side, which is brand new, it starts in January of next year after the swearing in, and there's going to be a transition period, but really it means that this position will be, in essence, the CFO for the county. And we need to make sure it's somebody that is trustworthy, is somebody that is going to look out for Miami's resources staying in Miami. We have, as of last year, we had an $11.7 billion budget. This year is closer to $13 billion. So it really is important for us to understand and have somebody trustworthy. It also includes the audit department. We don't need to be playing politics with such power. We need to make sure that we're not going to get a phone call from the governor and just start auditing people because they're of a different political party. We need to make sure that we don't waste resources or time on that we truly are auditing those who are doing wrong to the people or malfeasance of our resources, our taxpayer dollars. And in addition to that, we'll also be doing the investment of those dollars. And we need to make sure that they're based on sound financial information and not on woke companies because that's what Tallahassee wants to go after, including Disney. And so when you have a record of having voted for playing games with our public corporations that really are part of our economy, I have a problem with that if we're going to give the CFO, in essence, position to someone who's played games like that, political games, and that's really concerning. And that is a part that a lot of people are not aware that now becomes part of this job.
Absolutely. And going back to the clerk of the court, let's talk about improving accessibility and transparency for residents and how that ties and why is that important?
Well, look, just being able to go online and get information. For example, as reporters try to get records. I was in Tallahassee and have a record of always fighting to make sure that records are available, are made public. I actually filed bills to make sure that that you can pay online when you request for something if you have to pay. There are right now charges at the Miami-Dade Clerk and Comptroller's office where you're charged $1 per page, and by law you don't have to. So when we don't have to by law, why are we charging? And also, there's all kinds of delays that are done by government to try to slow down the process of being transparent and open. I think everything as much as possible, of course, with, again, following the law and redacting the information. But that's just one example. When we have traffic tickets, it takes 3, 4, 5 days for a traffic ticket to show up online.
Boy, don't I know it.
And then you forget about it.
No, I got it in the mail. It was like, what? I didn't even know I did something. I'm sorry.
Yes.
In South Miami. Sorry.
Well, the clerk's office is the one that actually manages all this. And it is a major problem. And I have to tell you, this is actually something that I really looked into as to ways for us to help. We have a lot of laws in Florida that criminalize poverty. And it is completely unacceptable that we do that. But without having to change laws, there's a lot of things that we can do to make sure that people don't end up in an even worse situation because they couldn't pay within 30 days. Then there's the percentage that they charge and the collections agency and the fees, and all of that adds to the problem instead of the solution. And we currently in Miami-Dade have we have hundreds of thousands, and I'm going to repeat that because it's hard to believe, hundreds of thousands of people with a suspended license. And it's not because they were reckless driving. The reckless driving is 3% or less. We're talking about people who just didn't pay a ticket. And obviously you add to that the red light camera tickets. Now we have the school bus tickets. I mean, we have a lot of situations that can get people into a tough situation with their driver's license. I think that one of the reasons we pay one of the highest car insurance fees in the country is because we have so many people with a suspended license. And I'm not talking about undocumented people. I'm talking about people who had a license and then lost that privilege. And we want to make sure that we get them back. And obviously, if it was due to failure to pay. And I know there's the county commission did a great job. They did a study on how to fix this problem. I think we need to really, really fix it and then go back and study it again so we can go prove to the insurance companies that we no longer have so many, and we're able to then hopefully lower our car insurance if we no longer have so many people driving with a suspended license.
And Miami-Dade is so diverse in culture. And I want to address the underserved. How are they represented? How are you going to support them? What do you see as the loophole that needs to happen that maybe you can fill in that gap?
Look, this has been something that I have always talked about, worked towards. I think it's outrageous that although we have home rule in Miami-Dade County, Tallahassee has always tried to interject and force local municipalities and counties to do what they say. And we're Miami-Dade County. We're not Dixie County. The cost of living is
not Alabama.
Exactly, not Alabama. Well, Dixie County might as well be Alabama, which is in Florida. But it really, and yes, I can't believe we still have a Dixie County, the name Dixie. But that tells you everything you need to know. And so that's my point is we do this is something that I have a record fighting for people to get a living wage. And then Tallahassee comes in and says, you can't. So those kinds of things are really things that we need to make sure we figure out ways to pay people in order to be able to live here. For example, I just spoke about the issue of the licenses, and we also have the returning citizens. We all voted for citizens who paid their debt to society, who served their time in jail to get the right to vote. Well, those records are held by the clerk of the courts. And we need to work very closely to make sure that the voters' intent is fulfilled. And I know that it's become a state secret how to pay those fines that they now implemented as law. And we need to make sure that we work to fulfill what the voters' intent was, which was to give those people back their right and for them to be back in society fully.
Absolutely. Well said. You're very strong on economic issues. We've said that a couple of times. How would you, with your financial expertise, that be put forward and benefit your role as the comptroller?
Very much so, because again, I mean, obviously you have a team of experts that you work with. We have a financial department in the county right now that is 200 people that will come over to the clerk and comptroller, which is already close to 1,000 people. So we're talking about 1,200 people, but just the finance alone. Again, just making sure that we are making sound financial decisions, that our investments are growing, that we are doing everything we can to make sure that, because if it grows, that we make sure of that, because if it grows, then the commissioners and the mayor, which are the ones that set the budget and set the millage rate, won't have to raise it, because of course we need to make sure that the money is well invested, well managed, that bills are being paid. This office will also pay the bills, and that we're not playing politics with both the money investments, but also with the continuation of business, which is so important to our economy. We can't have, a project be all of a sudden on a standstill because there's a delay in payment because we start playing games, political games. It's a very concerning thing that I know that I bring, that everybody, again, Republicans and Democrats, are aware of how well I worked. I was actually the one who fought against taking away MDX and turning it into GMX, which has been a fight that has cost us, Miami-Dade alone, over $100 million.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, because that is a tax. The tolls are a tax that we have, but it is Miami-Dade County's roads, Miami-Dade County's board of MDX, and again, because it's a very powerful thing, we decided to or Tallahassee decided that they wanted to control that the board will be named by the governor and controlled by the governor, and therefore many of the decisions which some we may agree, some we may not. Again, we are very big on not moving the boundary line for protecting our Everglades in this community, and so we want to make sure that the roads that are being built, that we're working on traffic, that we're working on things, but at the same time understanding all of the things that we care about, which is our environment, because it affects all of us. So I was the leader in that fight, and really pretty much killed all along the way until they found a way to get around it.
But you're still smiling.
I'm smiling because I have the scars to show it, and people know that I really, and again, that's when a lot of Republicans, Democrats, Independents realized, wow, she really is there fighting for us. And unfortunately, some of those fights were with our own representatives from Miami-Dade. And that's what really bothers me, when you have people that go up to Tallahassee or get elected here, and they're not truly looking out for Miami-Dade, for our resources to stay here, our decisions to stay here. You may agree or not with the county commission on some of those decisions or the mayor, but you know that they were elected by the people and they're right here closer to the people.
So if it's 30 seconds, 30 seconds, give me your best elevator speech why our community should vote for you.
Because I am somebody that has a track record, both legislatively and in business, that will bring that diversity as well as lack of interjecting politics into this office. Really important to have someone that we can trust and someone that is going to be there to represent you, the voters, not special interests. I have always stood up for that and will continue to do so as clerk and comptroller.
Wonderfully said. So early voting happening now?
Well, starting Monday, early voting starts. People are already voting by mail. You can still request your vote by mail ballot. Call 311 or Elections Department, and they will send it to you. You're not too late. But still, also, if you have your ballot at home, you can go and drop it off at an early ballot location. They will have drop boxes. They'll go ahead and check your signature, so your ballot is already done. Like you are done. You don't have, in case there's a problem with the signature, that's what's nice about delivering it at the ballot box, right at the early voting locations, which are going to be all over the county for 2 weeks.
And then we have here the information on how to get out there, and if you have any questions, and also your website.
My website is AnnetteTaddeo.com, and all of my information is there, and also social media, and just look forward to serving you again.
Annette Taddeo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Oh, so fun.
Get out there and vote. This is your time. I'm Fara Sachs. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great day.